It wasn't an algorithm. You need to understand that first. The images and sounds you were shown, the cryptic numbers that appeared in your recommendations, that was a signal, a tuning fork resonating with something already inside of you. You were chosen because you are one of the few who senses that the reality we see is just a fraction of the whole story, a beautiful, hypnotic, but fragmented echo. For months, you've been collecting those echoes, feeling their power without understanding the source. Consider this video the first translation of that source. This is not another theory or a guess. This is the blueprint, the very architecture of the philosophy you've been subconsciously drawn to. What you are about to see is the key that elevates you from a mere spectator of the mystery to an active participant in its unfolding. The puzzle pieces are in your hands. Now, let's begin to assemble them.
In the previous chapter, we walked the perimeter of the hypothesis that the dream acts as a threshold, a silent passage opening nightly to usher us into an adjacent reality. This world does not merely imitate our waking life, but proposes a structural variation of it, misaligned yet coherent, governed by a gravity that obeys unfamiliar parameters and a time that pulses rather than flows. We have observed how certain dreamscapes seem to retain the memory of our visits, and how certain figures appear in the dreams not as hollow projections, but as autonomous entities, stable configurations within a shifting topology. But now, let us shift our vantage point. Let us try to look at this phenomenon from another angle entirely, not to reject what has been said, nor to dismantle the architecture we have built, but, on the contrary, to allow it to resonate with our second hypothesis, less concerned with space and more attentive to form. What if the dream world is not just a place, but a language? We can assume that the perceived dream space is actually a living syntax, a symbolic system expressed through the figures and architecture that emerge within it. These forms are not meant to serve as proxies for other meanings, but aim solely to directly affect our inner structure. As you can see, our two hypotheses are not mutually exclusive. They mirror each other. Perhaps the alternative reality we inhabit in dreams truly exists, but it unfolds like a code. And it is not an objective elsewhere waiting to be mapped. It is an experiential grammar that takes the physical shape of rooms, corridors, and shadowy presences. And it does not receive us as visitors. Instead, it writes us. It inscribes us as internal elements of its own logic. Thus, the dream does not offer images that need to be interpreted in any way. It composes an utterance, a sentence articulated each night in unstable, reconfigurable segments. In this sentence, consciousness is not the subject acting upon the world, but a grammatical effect of the world acting upon it. In other words, moving through the dream, we may perhaps be the object of the movement itself. We do not move, we are being moved. Observing a dream scene, we activate symbolic sequences that operate like a mechanism, requiring no explanation. Those very familiar rooms and corridors that return to us every night, rearranging themselves in our dreams solely to preserve internal coherence, may not be physical zones to which we return, but rather recurring phrases, constantly reformulated until they finally attain ultimate perfection. And perhaps we dream of the same rooms, not because we return to them of our own accord, as if to a specific point in the dream world, but simply because the structure in which they are involved is not yet complete. Perhaps the dream does not describe something, but rather, through our presence, sustains the necessary life within that something. Of course, we can continue to analyze these oblique architectures and flexible laws as spatial phenomena, or we can read them as syntax. The irrational spiral of a staircase or the sideways slide of a door are not hidden signals, but expressive devices and narrative operators. In this context, every image is a verb, every gesture a connector, and every figure a syntactic force. The dream, then, does not show us something about ourselves. It bends us, structures us, rewrites us. It does not offer explanations, but activations. It does not invite us to understand, but to resonate with its internal logics. James Hillman suggested that we remain within the image. Jung spoke of archetypes not as symbols to be deciphered, but as dynamic forms that manifest in sequences. In both these cases, the symbol is not something to be explained away. It is something that moves, something that returns because it serves a structural need, not because it holds a hidden message. In the previous video, we have also spoken of the dream body, a form that appears able to move autonomously through the dream space. But ask yourself, what if it is also, or simultaneously, a grammatical configuration? What if the I in the dream is a syntactic center around which the dream organizes itself? A narrative balance point required by the field to sustain its own existence? Perhaps we are not the ones who move. Perhaps it is the dream that forms around a shifting axis, a narrative function that appears as I, but exists only to maintain the flow of dream events in motion. And so, we arrive at a startling conclusion. We do not dream in order to understand. We dream in order to continue, to allow the sequence to unfold. The dream does not ask to be interpreted, it asks to be lived. Certain constructions return to the dream each time, not because they speak, but because they hold the structure up, like pillars in a cathedral. Certain images repeat not because they contain a message, but because they maintain coherence. The dream is a form that performs itself every night without pause. It changes appearance, shifting its mask, but not its intention. Each figure is a cadence in a song. Each space is a declension of a noun. The dream does not interrupt reality. It continues it in a different register. It is not outside the world. Rather, the dream is a fold where existence articulates itself through laws we have not yet learned, but which we intuitively recognize because they have always resided within us. When we wake, the sentence does not end. The grammar merely shifts back to a linear syntax and shared semantics, leaving the previous structure active in the background like a latent utterance waiting to be resumed. The dream behaves like a language not to say something, but to do something, to generate form, and to keep us legible. See you in the next episode.